All right, everybody, it's 9 o'clock. My name is Ryan Ellis. I'm the Science and Operations Officer here at the Weather Service in Morehead City. You can see I'm coming to you from the Eric Hayden studios here. So this morning we are going to be discussing decision support briefing number 8 for this very complex coastal low system that we have going on. Just from an overview standpoint, as we look at the models this morning, it's a very complex situation. We've got one coastal low that is forming below us. There may be a second one forming over the mid-Atlantic coast. And then we've got an upper level low that's coming down from the Great Lakes. And all three of these are kind of interacting together. To be honest, this morning, the models don't have a great handle on exactly what's going to happen yet. And so when we talk about the forecast here, I'm going to discuss our most likely scenario and then also some possible things you may see as the day goes on today, as we look at the different hazards associated with the storm. So what has changed? We now have a wind advisory in effect for the Outer Banks and down east Carteret County. And all gale watches have been upgraded to gale warnings. We are now in that time period where we typically go from watch to warning. So that has taken place since the last time the briefing was sent out. Timing, everything in this department is still pretty much on track here. We do expect the winds to start coming up from south to north. That's going to be this afternoon and this evening, and then really ramping up overnight. And then as we get into the day tomorrow, you'll start to see those winds relax as that low moves up and possibly past us a little bit. Certainly into Monday, we see those wind impacts come down. Coastal flooding, not too much has changed in this regard. So we do expect those oceanside coastal flooding. We are getting on the other side of the king tides now, so that'll start to help us out a little bit. But as those come down, of course, we have the wind coming up. And so you're still going to have impacts there along the coast. Sound side, we'll discuss a little bit in more detail as we get into the other slides. So depending on the exact track of the low, certain areas may go up a little bit, certain areas may go down a little bit, and we'll tell you exactly where those are. But we expect that to be mostly overnight tonight into tomorrow, and then heavy rain and potential flooding threat. Some of the tracks of the lows do take it a little bit more inland. That may give us a little bit more rain, a little bit further inland. Again, we expect that to be mostly a tonight thing into tomorrow, and then that rain shield does lift off to the north, and we should start to see that part of it slow down. Of course, marine impacts are going to be pretty significant through this whole thing. So here's still the discussion on where the low tracks may go. We still have models in each of these camps this morning. However, I do think we're narrowing in on either the more inland track or the right along the coast track. I think this one that takes it a little bit further out to sea is becoming less likely at this time. And so we're going to focus on the impacts of these two possible tracks here. So as we get into the coastal flooding for through Saturday afternoon through today, we'll start to see things ramp up here, but nothing really changing at this point for the Outer Banks. And of course, for the as we get into tonight through Monday, now some of the models do slow it down a little bit. So I would say that there's more of a chance of this lingering a little bit further into Monday. But we do expect the tide cycle on Sunday to be some of the highest, that high tide on Sunday, the first one, not the evening one. And so you can see not much has changed here with the numbers that we're seeing. Down east Carteret and some of the rivers here, this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. when we look at that track that may keep it offshore a little bit versus the one that comes inland a little bit. So the inland track is going to be more likely to bring us that switch in winds to the northwest. And so then in that scenario, you're getting more of that slosh effect where we've got first the easterly winds bring the water to the west, and then after the low passes, comes back to the east, and you get more of that sound side flooding. That would be true with the Outer Banks scenario as well. However, if we get the track that stays offshore a little bit more, we keep these northeasterly winds, then that sound side flooding becomes a little bit less, and the water piling up places like the Neuse River becomes a little bit more. And so in that scenario, you may see a little bit more water piling up the Neuse. And so this 1 to 2 feet that you're seeing here could be on the higher end of that. We may tick the numbers up just a little bit, maybe to a 2 to 3 or something like that. And then this part of the sound side, that 2 to 4 feet on the sound side may actually go down a little bit to more of a 2 to 3. So be on the lookout for those changes with the afternoon briefing. The forecasters are looking at those things right now, kind of going through the analysis. And for the afternoon briefing, those would be 2 of the main changes to look out for there. Otherwise, everything else, coastal flooding, still pretty much on track. Rainfall, a little bit of an uptick here, particularly for along the Crystal Coast, Carteret County. And if that inland track does take hold a little bit, shift all of these slightly westward, some of those higher values creeping a little bit further westward. And so 3 to 6 along the immediate coast, 2 to 4 kind of the next tier to the west, your Highway 17, between 17 and 95, you're looking at 1 to 3, and then a little bit less the further you go to the west there. We do have a flood watch in effect now for the Outer Banks and Down East Carteret County until 8 a.m. Sunday. Again, once that rain shield shifts to the north later in the day, Sunday, and into Monday, we should see much less in the way of rainfall. So that is more of a 2-day threat. With the inland track, we do have the chances here that that low comes a little bit closer to us. And we do have a little bit of more of a severe threat if that is the case. And in this scenario here, you can see the marginal risk for severe weather. Certainly watching the radar for quick spin ups of tornadoes, water spouts, things like that. We'll be doing that throughout the day. So make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings. We do think the greatest concern for severe weather would be Saturday night, tonight into Sunday. So after that, that threat would diminish significantly. Winds, here's the gust map from this morning. As the model starts to bring things in, there looks like there could be a slight uptick in these winds, not dramatic, but on the order of 5 to, at the high end, 10 miles an hour across the board here for the afternoon. So if that does materialize, you could see a possible high wind warning for places like Down East Carteret to Hatteras Island. And then your wind advisories may expand westward a little bit. So that's another one of the key changes to look out for with the afternoon briefing. Impact wise, I don't think there'll be all that much of a change whether or not we get 40 or 45 mile an hour winds. So it's more of a crossing our thresholds for watches and for warnings and advisories. And so we'll take a little bit deeper dive into that in the forecast today. And then we've got our high surf advisory now in effect from Cape Lookout through Duck. These numbers are the swell here, so right along the beaches, probably more like 10 to 12 somewhere in that range. And so, of course, anything offshore marine-wise is going to be a tough go today. So I think that's it with all of the kind of the caveats to the forecast here. So largely we're on track. There's those few things that we talked about, the coastal flooding, looking for that potential up the Neuse, looking for that potential maybe slight decrease on the sound side of the Outer Banks if that offshore scenario happens, and then a little bit of an uptick in the wind. And then finally, just this thing kind of lingers and wobbles through Monday. So some of these impacts may hang on just a touch longer, but for the most part, you know, we'll see the biggest rain effects today and tonight. We will see the biggest coastal flooding effects tomorrow, and then lingering into Monday potentially, but starting to see those impacts decrease at that point. This is the last webinar that we are going to do, but those briefings will keep coming out. We're going to have another one out this afternoon, and we'll keep the 2 a day going until we are out of this. So with that, I'll take any questions and concerns that you may have, and otherwise, hope that you all have a great rest of your weekend. So